In medieval courts, where loyalty to kings clashed with the whispers of passion, one tale stood out for its sheer brutality. A valiant knight, celebrated 4 victories in battle, had returned home to find himself entangled in a deadly love triangle. His wife, admired for her beauty and grace, had caught the wandering eye of the king himself. At first, the knight dismissed the rumors as idle gossip, yet the queen's lingering glances and the king's gifts told another story.
What should have remained hidden blossomed into scandal. When the truth emerged, honor demanded confrontation. The knight stormed the great hall, accusing his sovereign of betrayal.
What followed was chaos. Blades flashed in the firelight as soldiers rushed to defend their ruler, but the knight's fury was unmatched. Blood spilled across stone floors, courtiers shrieked, and the once sacred hall turned into a battlefield. The king survived, though wounded, while the knight was hacked down mercilessly. His wife, branded a traitor, was imprisoned in a convent until her death. This was no simple matter. Of love gone wrong, it was the collapse of trust between crown and knight. A private affair had transformed into a bloodbath that scarred an entire kingdom. Not all medieval romances were sweet ballads sung by minstrels. Some were battles disguised as courtship. In one noble court, a young lady of high birth became the object of affection for 2 very different men, a silver-tongued poet and a hardened warrior. The poet wooed her with verses that painted her beauty in the stars, while the warrior swore that no man could protect her but him. Torn between tenderness and strength, she entertained both, believing she could control their rivalry. But jealousy brews faster than wine. The warrior mocked the poet's softness, while the poet humiliated the warrior in song before a gathering of nobles. Honor was wounded, and honor in the Middle Ages demanded blood. At dawn, they met beyond the castle gates. Their duel began with swords, but soon daggers slipped from cloaks, and rage drove the fight beyond reason. The warrior's strength overpowered the poet, leaving him lifeless on the frozen ground. The noble woman's screams brought servants running, but it was too late. The court descended into chaos, as families took sides, poets against soldiers, lovers against rivals. One woman's indecision had unleashed a feud that spilled blood across the region, proving love was rarely innocent in the medieval world. In the glittering halls of medieval France, where power and marriage often trumped affection, a queen found herself caught in a storm of passion. The king, her husband, was stern and distracted by wars, but a knight of noble birth captured her heart with devotion and fire. Their affair was secret hidden letters, stolen glances, meetings under moonlit arches. 4 months. The deception endured, until the king, ever suspicious, uncovered the truth. Rage burned through him. He summoned the knight to a feast under the guise of reconciliation. The hall was filled with laughter. Goblets raised high until the signal was given. Soldiers seized the knight, and before the queen's horrified eyes, he was dragged outside and executed. His blood stained the cobblestones beneath torchlight. The queen was forced to sit beside her husband, her heart breaking as her lover's screams echoed into silence. Rumor spread quickly. Some said she poisoned the king's wine weeks later. Others whispered she plotted rebellion with loyal nobles. The court was split, suspicion clouding every banquet and council. What began as stolen kisses became a tale of betrayal,
Murder and vengeance.
In the Middle Ages, love was never harmless. It was a weapon that cut as deeply as any blade. Royal courts thrived on whispers, but sometimes those whispers ended in rivers of blood.
One such tale tells of a king whose own brother fell hopelessly in love with the queen.
At first, it was innocent conversations too long, touches that lingered, but passion knows no boundaries. Their affair soon blossomed in shadowed corridors. The king, blind at first, eventually saw the truth. His fury was unlike anything seen before. Instead of quiet punishment, he summoned his household knights and turned his palace into a killing ground. Guards loyal to the queen were cut down in her chambers. Her ladies-in-waiting were slaughtered without mercy. The brother himself was captured, dragged through the castle halls as nobles wept, and executed publicly as a traitor. Blood ran across marble floors, staining the court forever. The queen's fate was crueler still. She was locked in a high tower, left to rot in isolation, her laughter and grace replaced by madness.
Nobles began to question their king's judgment. Was this justice or cruelty disguised as law?
This single affair, born of passion, ended in massacre. What might have been a secret romance destroyed not only lives, but also the stability of a kingdom built on fragile trusting. A time when marriage was forged for alliances, not affection. A young princess found herself the pawn of politics. She was promised to a proud and ruthless lord whose armies guaranteed her father's throne. Yet her heart betrayed her. A knight from a rival land, bold and unafraid, caught her gaze. Their secret love grew in letters hidden beneath floorboards and moonlit meetings beyond castle walls. Inevitably, the truth surfaced. At a grand feast, with torches blazing and musicians playing, the betrayed lord rose to his feet, his eyes locked on the knight, and the hall fell silent. Words of accusation turned into challenges, and swords were drawn. Before the eyes of nobles, steel clashed, goblets shattered, and blood spilled onto the rushes. The knight fought valiantly but was struck down. His body lay across the hall, lifeless, as the princess wept beside him. Her cries did not move her betrothed. He declared victory, claiming her as his bride by right of conquest. Yet the peace he sought unraveled. The knight's homeland declared war, blaming betrayal and cruelty. What began as a romance between two souls ended in a blood-stained tragedy that set kingdoms ablaze. In the age of medieval kings, thrones were not lost only to war. They could crumble under the weight of love and betrayal. A powerful monarch once found his rule threatened not by invaders, but by a dangerous rivalry at court. His queen, admired for her beauty, became the center of a triangle involving the king himself and his most trusted advisor. The advisor, bold in both politics and passion, began a secret romance with the queen. Together, they plotted not only to sustain their love, but also to weaken the king's authority. Rumors spread quickly.
Nobles whispered in the halls. Soldiers grew uneasy, and the king's rivals seized the moment.
Betrayal had undermined the throne.
When the truth could no longer be denied, the king acted ruthlessly.
He ordered his advisor's execution and confined the queen to a convent. But the damage was done. The betrayal divided his kingdom.
Rebellions flared, alliances broke, and the throne trembled. This was no ordinary love affair.
It was a rivalry that toppled trust at the very heart of power. The blood that spilled was not only of the guilty, but also of thousands dragged into civil war. A king's crown had been undone by love's treachery. In the medieval world, love often had consequences far beyond the heart. One infamous tale tells of a young noblewoman trapped in a loveless marriage to an aging lord. Her heart, however, belonged to a dashing knight who swore he would free her from her gilded prison. Their affair was hidden, carried out under shadows and whispered prayers. The knight, consumed by passion, devised a deadly plan. One evening, while the lord feasted, the knight struck. The old man was found with a dagger in his chest, his blood soaking into the rushes beneath the table. The lovers thought themselves free, but freedom in the Middle Ages was rarely simple. Suspicion quickly fell upon them. Servants whispered of secret meetings, of the knight slipping into the ladies' chambers at night.
The lord's family demanded justice.
Soon, torches lit the courtyard as the knight was dragged away, tried, and executed before the people. The noblewoman's fate was harsher still. She was walled alive within the convent she had once prayed in, left to die slowly. Their story was no ballad of love, but a cautionary tale. Passion in the Middle Ages could inspire poetry. Yes, but it could just as easily inspire murder. Amid banners, tournaments, and feasts, medieval courts were breeding grounds for scandal. A noblewoman, admired for her charm, found herself adored by two men, a gallant knight and a cunning court official. Both sought her hand, but her heart wavered between duty and desire. She accepted gifts from one and promises from the other, fueling a rivalry that soon turned dangerous. The knight, humiliated by the official's influence, demanded to eduedo, But this was no ordinary fight. Families, allies, and retainers all took sides. What began as a private feud erupted into open violence. Streets ran red with blood as the knight's supporters clashed with the officials' men. Houses were burned, servants slaughtered, and the city descended into chaos. In the end, neither suitor triumphed. Both lay dead on the battlefield, and the noble woman's fate was sealed in disgrace. Stripped of titles and lands, she was exiled, her name cursed as the spark that ignited destruction. This was the grim truth of medieval passion. An affair of the heart could swell into a war of blades. Romance was never only about love. It could unravel entire communities, leaving only ash and blood in its wake. The Middle Ages were filled with stories of forbidden passion, but some romances turned darker than the night itself. A young lady of the court fell deeply in love with a troubadour who sang beneath her window. Their secret seemed harmless, even poetic. Yet her family had promised her to a brutal warlord whose lands were vital to their survival. When the warlord discovered her betrayal, his wrath knew no limits. He ambushed the troubadour, beating him before her eyes. But the lovers would not yield. With desperate courage, they conspired to poison the warlord at a feast. The plan succeeded but too well. The poison spread through shared goblets, killing not only the warlord, but also several unsuspecting nobles. The banquet turned into a bloodbath. Nobles collapsed into their plates, gasping for air, while servants fled in terror. Panic consumed the hall, and within hours, rumors spread across the land. The lady and her troubadour were hunted down, captured and condemned. They were executed together, bound side by side, their love sealed in death. What began as music beneath a window ended in carnage. Medieval romances could inspire beauty, but when shadowed by vengeance, they could destroy kingdoms. History remembers great battles fought for power, land, or faith, but some wars were born of love. In one kingdom, a princess was promised to a neighboring prince to secure peace. Yet her heart already belonged to another, a knight of her father's household. Their secret meetings beneath moonlit towers were tender but dangerous. When her betrothal was announced, the truth surfaced. The knight refused to step aside, declaring his love openly. Enraged, the foreign prince demanded satisfaction. Insults turned into challenges, and soon swords clashed, not between two men, but between two kingdoms. Amias Marishetto fields. Burn. Thousands of peasants who had no part in the romance suffered for it. The princess, forced into marriage, became a pawn in a blood-soaked struggle she had never wished for. The knight, captured on the battlefield, was executed as a traitor. In the end, peace was restored only after rivers of blood had been shed. The princess, broken by grief, retreated into silence, her love remembered only in whispers.
This was the cruel truth of the Middle Ages. Forbidden passion did not just ruin hearts, it could plunge entire nations into war.
In the age of feudal lords and armored knights, honor was currency, and jealousy could spill blood as swiftly as steel. A nobleman's daughter, celebrated for her beauty,
Became the center of a fierce rivalry between two men, her betrothed.
chosen by her family for power, and a knight whose courage in battle had captured her heart. At first, the men exchanged sharp words in court, their rivalry hidden beneath courtesy. But when the knight was caught passing her secret letter, the truth burst into the open. The betrothed demanded satisfaction, and a duel was arranged. Yet this was no simple clash between two men. Their households took sides, summoning retainers, arming servants, and preparing for war. The duel erupted into a massacre. The courtyard, meant for a contest of honor, became a slaughterhouse as dozens of men fought to the death. By dusk,
Bodies littered the ground, blood pooling around the very woman they fought for.
in the aftermath, she was sent to a convent, accused of causing disgrace. The knight lay dead, the betrothed gravely wounded, and two families destroyed. What should have been a love story ended in carnage, remembered only as a warning against desire unchecked. Among the chronicles of medieval Europe lie tales of kings and queens undone not by armies, but by their own hearts. One such story comes from a kingdom where the queen found herself torn between her duty to her husband and her passion for a knight of striking courage. Their affair, whispered about in tapestries and songs, drew the attention of the king's most ambitious cousin, who saw in it a chance to seize power. The cousin revealed the affair in a grand council, igniting fury. The king ordered the knight's arrest, but loyal friends freed him, plunging the kingdom into civil war. Swords clashed in forests and villages, blood soaking the earth as men fought under banners of love and betrayal. The knight fell in battle, pierced by arrows, and the queen was condemned to exile. The cousin, smug in his betrayal, gained influence, but the kingdom itself was shattered, its treasury drained, its armies broken. This triangle of desire had birthed one of Europe's deadliest conflicts. What began as passion between two hearts spread like fire across the land, consuming soldiers, peasants, and nobles alike. In the end, the true victim was the kingdom itself, destroyed by love's treachery, beneath the banners of a medieval castle, where knights swore oaths of loyalty and minstrels sang of love. A darker tale unfolded. A young baroness, admired for her wit and beauty, found herself courted by two men, her husband's loyal steward and a wandering knight who dazzled her with daring tales. The steward, suspicious and possessive, grew jealous as he noticed the knight's growing influence. One night, as the baroness entertained guests, the steward cornered the knight in a dimly lit corridor. Words turned to blows, and steel was drawn. The knight struck first, his blade sinking deep into the steward's chest. Blood splattered across the stone walls, and the man's dying cries echoed through the castle. The baroness, horrified, helped conceal the crime, but rumors spread quickly. Servants whispered of strange noises, missing blood-stained garments, and the knight's sudden closeness to the lady. When the baron returned, the truth reached him, and vengeance came swift. The knight was executed in the square, his head displayed as a warning. While the baroness was locked away, stripped of title and honor. Love had once promised joy, but jealousy had carved it into murder. In the Middle Ages, desire could kill as surely as war. In royal courts, love was more than a matter of the heart, it was a question of power. One queen, radiant and ambitious, found herself caught between her duty to her husband, the king, and her secret desire for his younger brother. Their affair, veiled in shadows, became the court's most dangerous secret. When whispers reached the king, he acted with fury. At a royal feast, he exposed the affair before nobles and knights, striking down his brother with his own sword. The hall erupted in screams, blood pooling across gilded floors. Nobles fled, fearing for their lives, while the queen was dragged away in chains. The murder shattered the realm. The king's cruelty alienated his allies, and nobles began plotting rebellion. The queen's family declared war, demanding vengeance for her dishonor. Amiens Marishetto castles burned, and peasants starved as the land split apart. The love triangle that had begun with stolen glances ended in rivers of blood. The queen never regained her freedom, the king lost his throne to revolt, and the kingdom itself was left in ruins. Love, when mingled with ambition and betrayal, had proven more destructive than any invading army. Not every feud of the Middle Ages was fought over land or crown, some were fought for love. In Italy, a noble family's daughter fell for a rival clan's son, sparking a romance doomed from the start. Their secret meetings beneath church arches and behind cloister walls became the worst-kept secret in the city. Her betrothed, chosen to secure an alliance, discovered the truth and swore vengeance. Soon, families armed themselves, allies chose sides, and streets became battlegrounds. Duels turned to riots, riots to open war. Blood-stained cobblestones, and even churches could not protect those marked by the feud. The lovers' attempts to flee only worsened the carnage. Caught in a midnight ambush, they were slain together, their bodies left as trophies by their enemies. Yet their deaths did not end the feud, it intensified it, dragging on for generations. Chroniclers later claimed this bloody rivalry reshaped the city's politics, weakening both clans and opening the way for others to seize power. What began as a love story became the spark for decades of bloodshed. In the Middle Ages, Lovers' feuds were not personal dramas. They were wars that rewrote history itself. Among the noble courts of England, one affair grew so infamous, it became the stuff of legend. A married countess, neglected by her husband, fell into the arms of a young knight who worshipped her beauty. Their meetings were daring, hidden in stables, in gardens, even beneath the very chapel where her husband prayed. For months, their secret thrived, until betrayal came from within. A jealous servant revealed all. The husband's wrath was unrelenting. He lured the knight into a banquet under the guise of friendship. Wine flowed, music played, and then the trap was sprung. Soldiers seized the knight, dragging him before the countess. Before her eyes, he was hacked to pieces, his screams drowned by the cheers of drunken men. Blood sprayed across her gown as she fainted. But the affair did not die there. Outraged by the cruelty, the knight's family rallied retainers, sparking a feud that drenched the countryside in blood. Villages burned, peasants were slaughtered, and the count's household came under siege. The affair that had begun as whispers of passion had now become a war of vengeance. In the end, the countess was locked away in a convent. The count was slain in battle, and the land lay in ruin. In the high castles of Burgundy, power and lust often walked hand in hand. A powerful duke had a young wife, admired by all for her grace. Among her admirers was a cunning court official who craved not only her love, but also the power her influence brought. Their affair began as secret glances during councils, evolving into midnight trysts. When the duke uncovered the truth, he faced humiliation. Yet he hesitated, for the official commanded great political sway. Instead of swift justice, he plotted quietly. Poison was slipped into a goblet of wine, but fate turned cruel. The duke himself drank it by mistake. His sudden death left a power vacuum. The official, emboldened by lust and ambition, tried to seize control, but nobles loyal to the duke revolted. Civil war erupted, tearing the duchy apart. The young duchess, accused of treachery, was imprisoned, her beauty fading behind stone walls. The official was hunted down, tortured, and executed, his body displayed as a warning. What began as passion between two people ended in a murderous rivalry that consumed an entire realm. In medieval courts, love was not just dangerous, it was political dynamite. In medieval Spain, where honor was prized above life itself, a knight, a noblewoman, and a proud lord became entwined in a tragic triangle. The lady, promised to the lord, secretly loved the knight who had saved her family in battle. Their passion grew in stolen hours, hidden beneath cloisters and behind castle gardens. The lord discovered their secret and demanded justice. A duel was arranged, but unlike the duels sung in romances, this one turned into a massacre. Both knights fought with fury, their swords clashing beneath the sun. At last, the noble lord fell, mortally wounded. The lady, overjoyed for her lover's victory, rushed forward only for the knight to collapse, struck by a hidden dagger wound. He died in her arms, their blood mingling on the earth. Grief consumed her. Refusing to marry again, she entered a convent, where she spent her life mourning. The feud between the two families, however, did not die. Sons, brothers, and cousins sought vengeance, plunging the region into years of violence. The love triangle that had promised happiness brought only despair. In the Middle Ages, desire was not a gentle flame but a fire that consumed all who touched it. Not all wars were sparked by borders, some were sparked by hearts. In a northern kingdom, the king's heir fell in love with a lady already promised to a powerful duke. Their passion burned in secret until word spread, carried by spies. The duke, feeling dishonored, rallied his allies and accused the royal family of betrayal. The scandal erupted into political chaos. The heir refused to end the affair, declaring his love in open defiance. Nobles split into factions, some loyal to the throne, others siding with the duke. Skirmishes erupted, castles burned, and entire villages suffered for the sins of their lords. The lovers tried to flee but were captured. The duke demanded blood, and both were executed in the square, the heir by sword, the lady by fire. Their deaths, meant to restore order, only deepened division. Civil war raged for years, weakening the crown and leaving the kingdom vulnerable to invasion. This tale was remembered not as a romance, but as a lesson in disaster. Medibata passion unchecked by duty or honor could topple kings, fracture realms, and drown nations in chaos. Love had become a weapon more destructive than any army. In a small but wealthy duchy, a forbidden romance bloomed between a married duchy and a troubadour. Their love songs, meant to be secret, soon spread among the people, celebrated in whispers and ballads. The duke, shamed before his court, vowed revenge. The troubadour was seized during a performance, dragged before the duke, and condemned without trial. In the public square, he was torn apart by horses, his cries echoing as the crowd looked on in horror. The duchess, accused of betrayal, was locked in a tower and starved until death. But the punishment did not restore peace. The troubadour's kin, outraged by the brutality, rose in rebellion. Villages loyal to the duke were set aflame, his soldiers ambushed, and blood soaked the land. The once celebrated duchy descended into civil war. All this destruction stemmed not from politics or greed, but from forbidden love. The troubadour's songs, once filled with joy, became laments, sung by peasants mourning the dead. The tragedy proved a timeless lesson. In the Middle Ages, passion was never private. A single forbidden romance could cost not only 2 lives, but also the peace of an entire nation. Love in the Middle Ages was not a private affair, it was a dangerous game played in public, with consequences written in blood. In one fateful tale, a lady of high birth fell in love with her husband's sworn enemy, a rival knight. Their affair was reckless, for every glance, every meeting risked igniting long-held feuds. When the secret came to light, her husband flew into a rage. But instead of killing his rival in secret, he demanded vengeance in the open. He gathered his household, summoned his allies, and stormed the rival's castle. What began as a matter of the heart turned into a siege. Walls crumbled, soldiers died, and peasants were slaughtered in the crossfire. The knight who had stolen his wife's card fought bravely but was cut down before her eyes. The lady was dragged back in chains, her reputation destroyed, her family dishonored. In the years that followed, bards did not sing of their romance. They sang of the bloody war. It caused hundreds dead, villages reduced to ash, and 2 noble houses ruined forever. In the medieval world, love was never just passion. It was power, betrayal, and often a death sentence for all involved. Thrones were built on fragile foundations, and sometimes it was not armies but lovers who shook them to the ground. In one royal court, the king Essen and his most trusted general both fell in love with the same woman, a noble beauty whose family's loyalty was crucial to the crown. At first, the rivalry was hidden, masked by smiles across feasts and polite exchanges in council, but whispers soon spread. The woman, unable to choose, fueled the fire by encouraging both suitors. Insults were exchanged, friendships broke, and soon the court was divided, half behind the prince, half behind the general. When tempers exploded, the general accused the prince of dishonoring the crown. The hall erupted into violence. Swords clashed before the throne, cold Geoffrido and blood spilled on the marble floor. The king, horrified, watched his son fall, mortally wounded. The general seized power, but the kingdom was shaken.
Nobles rebelled, peasants rose, and foreign enemies invaded.
All stability was lost because of one deadly rivalry, born of love. This tale reminds us that thrones were not always lost. To war they could be undone by desire, jealousy, and a woman caught in the center of 2 powerful men. Passion could inspire poetry, but in the Middle Ages, it also inspired murder. A baron's wife, young and beautiful, caught the attention of a knight sworn to protect her household. Their affair grew reckless meetings in stables, letters exchanged through servants, whispers shared in chapel shadows. For a time, they believed their love untouchable. But love leaves trace. A jealous rival betrayed them, and the baron discovered the truth. He bided his time, waiting for the knight to ride with him into the forest. There, Beneath ancient oaks, the Baron struck. His men fell upon the knight, cutting him down in a storm of blades. Blood pooled on the forest floor, his body left to rot as the Baron's wife was dragged back to the castle, forced to watch her lover's severed head displayed on the gates. Broken and humiliated, she wasted away, her beauty fading in isolation. Her tale became a warning, whispered among noblewomen. Love could not only be forbidden, it could be deadly. For in the Middle Ages, to love outside the bonds of duty was to gamble with one's life, and often to lose it in blood. Royal courts were theaters of splendor, but behind the music and feasts lurked betrayal. One queen, bound to an aging king, fell into a secret romance with his captain of guards. Their affair gave her the tenderness the king could not, but it also placed the captain in grave danger. When the king uncovered the truth, his vengeance was merciless. During a grand banquet, he exposed the lovers before the entire court. The queen's face burned with shame, but her punishment was far crueler. The captain was dragged before the guests and executed on the spot, his blood soaking into the rushes as nobles fled in horror. The queen was locked away, condemned to a life of isolation in a tower. But the king's cruelty did not end. Whispers it fueled rebellion. The slain captain's men rose in revolt. Nobles questioned the king's judgment, and assassins stalked the palace corridors.
What began as a romance hidden in shadows erupted into political bloodshed.
The court that once sparkled with jewels and laughter became a place of fear, betrayal, and corpses. Love, once a private rebellion, had poisoned the very heart of the monarchy. Some romances shaped not just hearts, but entire histories. In a small but powerful kingdom, a young queen became trapped between two men. Her husband, the king, and his ambitious cousin. The cousin, charming and daring, promised her freedom and passion. Their affair blossomed, but it was more than love, it was treason. The king soon discovered betrayal within his own bloodline. At first, he planned quiet justice, but fury overcame reason. He summoned both the queen and the cousin to court, exposing their affair before lords and clergy. A trial by combat was declared, but instead of restoring honor, it tore the realm apart. The cousin's supporters raised armies, claiming the queen had been wronged. Loyalists rallied behind the king. What began as a scandal became civil war. Fields burned, villages starved, and the kingdom fractured. The cousin was slain in battle, the queen imprisoned for life, and the king left weakened. His dynasty crumbled, allowing rivals to seize power. Thus, a single love triangle altered the fate of a nation. Chroniclers would later write that passion, unchecked by duty, had done what no foreign enemy could. It destroyed a kingdom from within. In the medieval world, romance often sparked feuds that spiraled far beyond the hearts involved. One tragic tale unfolded in Italy, where two noble families were locked in rivalry. Their feud might have faded had a daughter from one house not fallen for a son of the other. The young lovers met in secret, exchanging vows beneath moonlit balconies. For a while, they believed love could heal ancient wounds. But when their secret surfaced, both families saw not romance, but betrayal. Each accused the other of dishonor, and steel was drawn in the streets. The lovers begged for peace, but their voices were drowned by swords. The feud escalated into open battle, with dozens slain. Blood flowed through the cobbled alleys, and the lovers' dream of unity became the cause of greater division. In the end, the young man was struck down, his body desecrated in vengeance. His beloved wasted away in grief, refusing to eat until death claimed her. Their story echoed through generations as proof that in the Middle Ages, love did not always heal it, often destroyed, leaving behind ashes, corpses, and endless sorrow. Not all wars were born of politics. Some began in the bedchambers of kings. One queen, neglected by her aging husband, fell into the arms of a dashing knight. Their affair was whispered of in courts, mocked in taverns, and soon reached the ears of foreign rulers. The king's rivals seized upon the scandal. Claiming the queen had been dishonored, he declared the kingdom weak and ripe for conquest. When the knight was executed and public beheaded before thousands, the queen's family rose in rebellion. accusing the king of cruelty. The rival ruler used this unrest as his excuse to march an army across the border. What began as passion and candlelit secrecy turned into war on muddy fields. Castles fell, villages burned, and thousands paid the price for Two Hearts' rebellion. The queen, imprisoned in a convent, lived long enough to hear of her kingdom's collapse. Chroniclers recorded her as a woman whose love cost not just her life, but her nation's freedom. A single affair, hidden behind stone walls, had ignited a war that reshaped medieval borders forever. Among the most infamous medieval scandals was the tale of a duchess who found herself at the center of a deadly triangle. Married to a powerful duke, she fell in love with a young squire who served at her court. Their meetings were reckless, their passion undeniable.
When the Duke uncovered their secret, he did not act swiftly.
Instead, he devised a plan of humiliation. During a lavish feast, he forced the duchess and the squire to sit apart, then accused them publicly of treasonous adultery. The squire, dishonored, lashed out.
He drew his dagger and struck at the Duke.
What followed was Kay's knights clashed with squires. Servants fled, screaming, and the great hall became a slaughterhouse. The Duke was slain, but so was the young lover, cut down by loyal guards. The Duchess, broken and stained with blood, was dragged to a convent and locked away. Her house fractured, her lands seized by rivals, her name cursed for centuries. This triangle was not just deadly for its lovers, it altered the balance of power in the duchy, proving once again that desire could be sharper than any sword. Jealousy was perhaps the deadliest poison of the medieval heart. One story tells of a troubadour who serenaded a noblewoman, despite her being promised to another. His songs of love filled the courtyards, and soon her heart belonged to him. But her betrothed, a proud and violent lord, did not take the insult lightly. He challenged the troubadour to a duel. The noblewoman pleaded for peace, but her cries went unheard. At dawn, the men met with swords. The troubadour, skilled in song but not in combat, was quickly overwhelmed. The lord ran him through, leaving his body sprawled in the dirt. Yet jealousy did not end there. Fearing his bride's lingering affection for the dead man, the lord locked her away, treating her as a prisoner in her own chambers. She withered in grief, cursing his cruelty. Their story spread across kingdoms, sung by other troubadours, as a warning that love, when twisted by jealousy, could leave behind nothing but sorrow and blood. In the medieval age, even the sweetest romance could turn deadly under the shadow of pride and betrayal. The Middle Ages brimmed with tales of passion that began in secret and ended in ruin. One such story came from the court of a powerful king, whose trusted advisor betrayed him by falling in love with the queen. At first, the affair remained hidden, cloaked in stolen glances and whispered promises. But nothing in the medieval court stayed secret for long. A single jealous servant revealed the truth, and the king's wrath erupted.
Rather than seek quiet justice, the king turned the matter into a spectacle.
Before nobles and clergy, he declared both his wife and his advisor guilty of treason. The advisor was executed brutally, his body quartered as a warning. The queen was forced into exile, stripped of her titles, and left to die in obscurity. But the ruin did not end with them. The king's cruelty divided his court, sparking rebellion among lords who once stood loyal. His dynasty weakened, and within a generation, his enemies claimed his crown. Thus, a single romance had destroyed not only lives, but an entire kingdom's legacy. In the Middle Ages, love was rarely innocent. It was often the spark that burned empires to ashes.